Hi everyone, hello, welcome. I've already, our guest is here. Good to see everyone on time. Hello, GM. We're going to start with our call today. Thank you for being on time. This is our 29th AVC Subcommittee meeting. We have particle scope today. And before we start with the topic, I am going to share the document that we're working on about our capture and sphere, which is operational security best practices. I've seen Clocky already has shared a document. Thank you so much. So for everyone that would also like to contribute to this, here is that document. You prefer, you can comment in there, you can create another document, you can give us feedback here, or everything. We're going to collect all the data that it's relevant for creating a sphere. So having said that, we're going to start. Okay, these are the topics that were discussed today. We have two guests because for this scope we are going to focus a lot in we're going to dive in the spell process, so we're going to try to figure out ways to improve it. So we're going to focus on the workflow, even what is a spell, right, like the basic things. So this is the perfect moment. We have Wonderland and Dewiz ecosystem actors for today. As you can see, like different perspectives, right? From an outsider, from a third party, and from an ecosystem actor that it's involved in Maker and all what is the end game. So as always, I think this is the best moment for if we have like any doubts or questions, and maybe you have seen the recent post in a few hours also, there was some reply from Dewiz that we would like to also discuss that. So yes, we encourage everyone to have like an active participation, similar like last week, which was incredible. So let's get into it. I'm going to give some context first, okay? And then we're going to start with our guests. We're going to give them some time to introduce themselves and to discuss the topics for today. So a few days ago, Wonderland posted about improvements for spells implementation process. Just let me see if there's anything that I am missing here from the chat. Hello there. Oh, good. Everyone's here. Okay. So yes, Wonderland, which is a team of, a group of devs, researchers, data scientists, investors, and they're gonna tell us more when they introduce themselves. Well, they present like these ideas in the Maker Forum, and they give like different points. And I'm gonna quote this part. It says like, approach is to contribute to the introduction of tools that streamline the task of both spell creators and reviewers while maintaining security and minimizing the technical barriers associated with tracking and executing the process. So, yes, having read that, also I'll mentioning that most of our audience, I mean, not everyone is technical, and everyone is a dev, and everyone has a technical background. So when we start like discussing this, keep that in mind, that you're not talking to experts, to technical experts. Not everyone is. And so yes, that way I think it's going to be more understandable for everyone. And so in the post, they discusses like efforts to improve the security and efficiency in Maker. And when it comes to like the different spells, right? Um, this I don't know, these actions can range from simple transactions to significant changes in the protocol. And so in the post, they identify like the current challenges and potential risks in the process of creating and implementing these spells. Um, so they mentioned that Maker has a meticulous checklist that creators and reviewers follow in order to ensure that spells, of course, are everything okay, like they are in the right path, right? But of course, there have been instance human errors that could have potentially compromised the protocol's integrity. I think we can all recall, right? The last one was a few months ago, and that it was a shout out to Clocky. He was the one who noticed this, right? Like the extradition of MKR, like the 0.05 MKR. Uh, that and this was posted in Discord. So yes, basically they what they posted, and this is just like the summary, but if there is anything in particular that you would like to focus on, that you have you would like them to explain in detail, this is the perfect time. So in the post, they analyze makers past mistakes in the execution spells. They describe possible points of failure of the current process. They propose a list of 7 possible improvements intending to uphold or reinforce the existing spell creation design. And our approach is not to start from scratch, but to introduce tools that streamline the tasks for both crafters and reviewers, enhance transparency in the process. So I think we can. I'm going to share the post with everyone. There you are going to see also the reply. Oh, perfect. They have shared also Wonderland, so you can know more about it. Okay, this was like a brief introduction, but we're going to start. So welcome. We have Waiver from Wonderland, and we have also people from from Dewiz. Shout out to them. Thank you for being here. I'm going to start first with Waiver, since we're talking about Wonderland. So I'm going to give you a few times for you to introduce yourself and to tell us anything that you may want to add about your post in the forum.
Thanks, Liz, for the introduction. Let me go a little bit deeper, but not too much, about who's Wonderland. We're a team of active developers, core core developers. Like, we partner with. I wanted not to expand this list a lot, but like where we where we are, like, but now in a way we are partner with Optimism for making like the super rich maintainment with Connect, doing active development and incorporating like new chains. And we were partnered with Reflexer, that we were developing like a fork of Rai, which is High, which is in a way like a third iteration of Maker DSS ecosystem, no? And I was particularly in charge of that development, and maybe that's where like I come, or my vision comes from, because if you see like the two protocols, in a way they are like quite similar, and it got me to understand like many security measurements that MakerDAO has. We are like talking about the spells, that is how the actions of the DAO like are actually on chain executed, and in a way like, yep. So in a way, these spells represent a contract that the MakerDAO proxy will call, doing what is called a delegate call to run all these actions that are on this smart contract in the scope of the DS proxy. That is like one of the highest like hierarchy like permissions that MakerDAO has. No, it's like the corp contract, and it can like disable the bot if that contract calls it. No, it has authorization to do whatever, and these spells are executed like every 2 weeks, so that the proxy MakerDAO like actually performs all these actions that are voted through a forum. So the process is kind of a proposal is made on the forum, then people vote for it, then comes the executive meeting where like executive voting happens, and these actions like go or not in the spell. And in parallel to that, there's a team like actually hand coding these actions into this smart contract parallel to the executive meeting, so that they know which one is approved, which not. And there's, as you said, like a meticulous checklist that guides these actors. There are one a crafter, one a reviewer, into doing everything according to Maker standards, no security standards. And by the end of this process, this spell, this PR pull request in GitHub gets merged, and then a new proposal is made, an executive proposal that is like, let's agree to execute all these contracts. No, so we reached to this like topic, I think, as a way of researching like ways of governance, how do they behave, how do they like actually execute their tasks, and we try to answer like the question in the most simplest way as we sometimes do, and it's like, okay, how is the other people doing it? No, how is MakerDAO? There is a DAO since, I don't know, it's 7 years, 6, 7 years, or has born even before, like has been doing it, and the fact that it's alive now, and the fact that it has like such a massive TVL means that, okay, this has worked. Like many, if somebody comes from the outside and see MakerDAO contracts, says like, can you do like some kind of other authorization system that it's not an all or nothing, or can you? But when you understand that it works like that, it needs like the versatility of being able to disable the contract, to being able to change the parameters, to being able to, you understand like why is the security system like so trivial in a way. But then the focus is on these smart contracts, no, and the fact that if any like malicious line of code is executed on one of these spells, like the whole ecosystem can. I mean, not only MakerDAO. No, if there's something that destroys MakerDAO in a way, I think like no, talking about any other DAO is going to be like completely irrelevant, because we as DeFi are going to cease to exist. So in a way, like I think we always do some trust assumptions, and working in in software and in DeFi, you have to do, you have to trust like what you get from your RPC provider is true, or that at least you can like corroborate with another one. And when you see like this spell process and all these like meticulous checklist, I think like they are obviously a result of saying like, okay, there was this mistake, let's add this checkpoint so that this mistake is not repeated, and then there is this other or this possibility, and do it in this way. And what we've seen from the outside is that these like tiny steps are sometimes like not so well defined, and I think something that Dewiz told in the answer, and was like a very interesting term to read, was tacit knowledge. Like I think most of these meticulous points require a lot of tacit knowledge to understand about like the previous patterns, and if you are following them, and leave like a lot of stuff to susceptible to human mistakes. No, you can be honest, can be malicious, but they are like human mistakes. And when you see like the whole process as a as a whole, and you say like, okay, what are the trust assumptions that we have in this process, no? And they all start with a Google Sheet. Like this is our first trust assumption, no? Like the crafter and the reviewer are going to see like the sheet that the executives have crafted, and they are going to do like everything according to that sheet. And if somebody manipulates that sheet and nobody realizes that there's an extra line, that there's something that wasn't voted, or somebody confuses like if this is approved or not, then like that's our first trust assumption. Then we have like the RPCs, no, and they are independently chosen by the developers. So like what's the risk? What's the risk of Google malicious manipulating a Google Sheet? Okay, I don't know. I would say it's slow. I'd say like Google has more when you talk about security, and especially in DeFi, you have to think about like, okay, what's the cost of attacking you, and what's the return that I have, and thinking about Maker, one has to consider like this is an 8 billion organization as for now, or almost. And when you think, okay, is Google going to manipulate? I don't know. I think Google has like bigger issues than 8 billions, maybe. Our RPC is going to like complot and give us like fake results. Okay, they are independent. The possibility that one is misbehaving is low. The possibility that two are misbehaving are like really low. Is GitHub going to like change the code base and not see anything? Okay, the possibility is low. There are smart contracts risks, no, like inheriting and like some practices that have brought some problems in maybe more complex like code bases when you inherit from here and from this other place. And there's been like recent cases of inheritance like issue like causing a lot of problems. But what we think as a vision, like, and I think that's general in Wonderland feeling, is that like smart contracts are being audited. Our smart contract security, unless we are trying to do like something completely radically new, they are quite okay. Like there are protocols that are surviving and they are not getting hacked, and they are like working okay, and we can trust the code base. But something that is like happening in the ecosystem is that there are like very few upgrade processes auditing. No, for example, this week there was a hack to a protocol that they did like some delegate call with an unverified check for a token transfer or something like that, and it was a very obvious bug. But what what called my attention is that this smart contracts was the root number 406 of this possible like swap integrator, no? 406. So in a way, if you don't have your checks online and on place, it was a time bomb. It was like if it's not 406, it's going to be 407 or 450. But if you don't have like the proper testing and procedures on what like you push into production, this is something that you can expect to happen. So in a broad view, I would say like there's not anything like very critical, and I think in the spell repository, like I think like Dewiz has been doing a very good job, like improving the testing suite, and with each spell, like they are getting better, and some of the proposals that we both in GitHub and in the forum, like I was it caught my attention, like the latest spell, for example. I thought, okay, what if we make a file with all the transfers? And then I see like the latest spell, and I see that they are doing both transfers for November and for December, and that's an edge case that I wouldn't have thought about, and it's something that, because of the nature of these spells that are like very particular to each of the situations, there are like some testing techniques that are better, some that are not. But in a way, I have the feeling that a lot of things overall could be improved in the way of how these spells are tested, how they can reduce like this tacit knowledge to try to understand the whole thing that's happening. How can community members, like independent with lesser like technical skills, can review the process, can be aware about like the pushes that have into GitHub, can be aware of the test that everything is on place. How can we avoid like the developers having to check space by space if the formatting is correct and if it follows like previous patterns? How can we like standardize like some patterns and say like, okay, if we are like integrating a new real world asset, how is the process, and try to have like a standard that if you have to move to a standard, you need to like declare I'm moving from the standard because of this, but not like every time doing something from scratch because there's nothing like too well designed. And so in a way, I think like the, the the repository as a whole is a little bit susceptible to human errors. And when you think about like the importance that we consider making having, and when you see like, okay, what's the security practices that they are implementing, it's from a perspective a little bit worrying. Yet I see, and this is like something that we was talking in the forum post, and I see like they've been doing a great like role, you know, like great improvements, and I'm happy like as an external collaborator was even like pushing PRs into GitHub and got like amazing answers about like what's the criteria. Some of the ideas were actually like taken, and I think they of course like involve a lot more than just code, because then you have to check like the okay, what's the effect on these meticulous checklist points, no? Now how is the process? But I don't know if I'm forgetting something. No, I think like that could be a good presentation about who we are, why we're here, and the topic. I don't know if what's the spells like was actually uh, explained in a not non-technical way, no?
Well, thank you so much. That was a really good presentation. Yes, like let me know if you have like a presentation or if you would like to share. I can give you also some time. Just confirm if you have. If no, it's perfectly fine.
No, I just have like code snippets. Uh,
Okay, it's okay. So from what you have mentioned, please, if anyone has any doubts or questions, this is the moment. I would like now to, we're gonna get back to you in a bit, but I just want to also now focus a little bit on the response, on the reply from Dewiz, that basically what they post on the forum a few hours ago, it's they outline these steps that they took and plan to improve the protocol and the spell process, and also they share like some background on how this process has evolved since and they give like some history, right? So like what happened before, right? With the protocol engineering core unit resign, and that situation left a gap um in with a new team that it includes Dewiz and Sidestream, like they had to fill for that position. And the post that you are going to see, that they also like the team acknowledged that the process has room for improvement and has been actively working on this. They have improved checklists, they have made them more clear, they have added missing checks for new developments, and the mistakes that also they were pointed out, they have learned from them, and uh, they are making the process like more robust. um, And they mentioned, even I think this is the perfect time to discuss with both of you, since in the reply they also mentioned about the suggestions given by Wonderland. Also, we were also explaining here a little bit. So now I'm gonna give the time to the team. I don't know which of you from Dewiz is going to talk, but this is the moment for you to give us a brief introduction, and also what would you like to highlight from the reply, and also from a waiver's comment.
Hey, hello everyone. I'm Effie, product manager at Dewiz. A few other members of Dewiz are here, so feel free to introduce yourself, guys, if you want.
Thank you. If I like something briefly from you, from Dewiz in general, and then we can start. Yes.
Yeah, I can give a quick overview where we got here, and I'm using can go later into more technical details. Basically, Dewiz, as you guys know, we're an ecosystem actor. Our main client is MakerDAO. We are former CES core unit members, and our main task or services that we offer to the DAO are general smart contract implementation. Our main responsibility, which is shared with Sidestream, is the implementation of a spell code every 2 weeks, and we share the responsibility with them, where one team defines a crafter and a reviewer, and the other team reviews as well. So we keep tabs on each other, make sure no errors fall through. And we also do continuous improvement. So the checklists are continuously improved. The test suite is continually improved, not only during the spell coding, but off a spell coding actually in December, because there's no governance cycle. That was a good moment to finally put some attention there. And trying to answer one of the comments that Weißer did about, for instance, payments to delegates is something that is very manual, and it's pretty regular. It happens every month, right? Not in December because there's no governance cycle. That's like the edge case. And it has been manual forever. Like back in the protocol engineering times, it was manual. It remains manual, and there has been several discussions about automating it. There are best modules that stream DAI and MKR by the second that the owner of the best can just call best and get their funds sent to their wallet. So that exists. There's an automation. There's a primitive already, fully battle tested in the protocol. It's still not used. Why? Because the calculation of the compensation that delegates get has been changing, and I think it continues to change. And that is a bit like the main blocker for many automation. There are other technical blockers on adding automation in spell crafting and how the DAO operates, but one of the main ones is humans and agreeing on a process that will not change. And payment is something that could be agreed, but it still changes, and that's why it has not been automated. And hopefully this whole Atlas vision about ossifying the core of Maker will have to finally deliver those automations on chain. And once those formulas are set in stone, and maybe there's a way to increase them with some inflation every now and then, you can just code that up and have it immutable in smart contract. And the numbers will not fail. There will be no errors because the smart contracts are deterministic. Same input, same output. We're humans, we are not deterministic. You give a human the same input twice, and one times it can act maliciously, right? So I think it's when we finally have a winning situation is when the humans agree on a process, and they agree to codify that process forever in the smart contracts. Maybe not forever, but for a long period of time. And the period of time needs to be long enough so the opportunity cost of focusing the development time on another project is still greater. And also this, I think, has been one of the challenges in Maker for a long time. Opportunity cost, what collateral to onboard, what project to pursue, because, always, like in businesses and even in a DAO, you're gonna prioritize new income, incremental sales, than maybe maintenance or something like that. The example of Maker is a bit different because, in a sense, we operate on-chain money. Let's say you cannot make mistakes. So security remains like the first priority. But even within that, generating new revenue from new collateral, in a secure way, is still sometimes prioritized. So even if you manage to automate payments, there might be another project that delivers more value. So it is a trade-off, and it's a decision that DAO needs to take. And hopefully this whole vision around ossifying will get us there. And spells would be streamlined quite a bit, I hope. Just to give a bit of color on this, for instance, edge case that Weißer brought about the delegate payment in January, which were for, I think, November and December or something like that. And yeah, I'm using, if you feel free to fill in any other technical details or points of view from your side.
Okay, I think you're talking about like we're with our contributions, like trying to get in the testing. No, I do believe like the way spells are crafted, like the spell contract also acts both as an on-chain actor because it has like the bytecode that is going to be executed, and I do think that the style of declaring each date as a constant, each thing as a constant of querying the chain log is important. It's a good security standard, especially for these like repetitive tasks that need to be doing. But what we're addressing is like, okay, how do we test this that all the payments are done? No, and in a way, our proposal was doing like a file, because when you test in Solidity, you have a contract, and then you have another file that has to call that contract and see that all the actions are executed properly. So in the scope of adding more community revision or making it clearer, like the test file, we propose like, okay, what if, since bests, payments, and yanks are doing like are being done in every spell or every other spell, how can we like simplify the testing of this? Not actually the transactions being done, because they are in the middle of the spell and they may be for different reasons, but how can we simplify so that any external user can see this and understand that this spell is making all of these payments and it's not making another one, for example. And I think that this is like, in a way, something that may be related with like the craftless spells, no code, no? That maybe in a future, like these payments can be like community actually crafted via a user interface and say, hey, we propose to make payments to this and this and this. And if there is no testing suite for that, to be sure that they are also not misbehaving and that the transfers are being done, like you fall in the danger of saying like, hey, this user like automatically did this spell for doing all these payments, but then a developer has to grab it, has to manually test it, and has to declare like, hey, this is good, we can go. So no matter how you like no code do stuff, if you don't have like a good testing process, in the end, you're going to have to rely on the human, like actually saying, hey, this is okay to go.
Yeah, I fully agree. I mean, the who watches watcher is always hard to solve.
That's kind of the issue, right? Because the thing is, like, a little bit of the technical context, like the people who built original Maker protocol, they had this very strict mindset of pretty much favoring simplicity and trying to reduce the overall complexity to the system so it could be more easy to reason about. But what comes from that is that like the system that like we have today, it has some clear limitations. For instance, most DAOs out there, like for instance, I think Aave has this, like they have two different kinds of proposals. One which is like simpler changes to the protocol, and other that are considered to be like more core changes, which have some different set of rules of being in order to be executed. But the governance contract of MakerDAO is the original one. Like it was developed before every single one that is out there, and it has some clear limitations that, for instance, doesn't allow us for easily splitting a spell into multiple parts. So everything has to be contained into a single contract. And like the actual format, it has evolved a long time. And back when we joined at CES, the protocol engineering core unit had agreed to like split the spell, so we could work separately on a different file, more or less the same way you are suggesting for payments, Weißer has, but it was actually related to managing collateral. However, like these proved to be a little bit cumbersome, especially with the amount of context that you have to keep in your head when performing the review. And of course, like the process is not perfect. And as you mentioned earlier in the call, there is a lot of tacit knowledge involved in this. And I think what we've been doing and what we've been trying to do is like to sort of codify that tacit knowledge into something that is readable and can actually help onboard new people to the protocol, being it an, uh, an outsider team as DeFi Wonderland, or like being new team members for the existing ecosystem actors. And this is an ongoing effort, and there are some kind of tacit knowledge that is kind of hard to codify, but like we're getting there. We're making improvements, especially when it comes to the checklist. Like it has been completely revamped since we took over on April 2023. So sorry, I was reading the chat here. So, but like one of the principles that guided uh, the original team and was inherited by protocol engineering and sort of guides us is the Chesterton fence principle. I just sent you a link here explaining the rationale, because MakerDAO engineering has a history of being extremely conservative in what it sets as changes in the code base. So our authorization model is quite simple. Like most of the contracts has only one level of authorization, which is the root level, which pretty much allows anyone controlling it to have full autonomy over that specific part of the system. Some others do have like 2 or 3 levels of permissions, but everything is handled like that because it's really simple to reason about. And the thing is, like the Chesterton fence principle, it pretty much says that like if you don't know why something was there, don't go ahead and change it without understanding it first. So that has a drawback of leading to some sort of ossification in the process itself. Like we do that because it was done like that. And sometimes it's hard to know the reason why something was done. I remember like once having a discussion back when we first joined. We're dealing with RWA onboardings, and we realized that the RWA oracles, they cannot have their price decrease for a specific RWA collateral, and nobody has seemed to have a good answer of why that was the case. So there are some things that end up being uh, left to the side because otherwise, like, we don't know entirely what are the consequences of making that change. But yeah, the protocol changes. Some new modules are being developed. Some modules are being deprecated. So we always need to make improvements in the process. And yeah, there were some errors. Like, I think the one regarding setting the wrong value for the debt ceiling of WBTC was sort of more problematic. And the extra payment to one of the delegates that was the latest one was also like, it's not a huge problem because like delegates are supposed to be long-term contributors to the DAO, so we can always like uh, make up to that mistake by transferring the difference a later date. But to point out that like in the span of four or I think yeah, multi-collateral DAI has 4 years or 5 years. I never remember the actual date, but there were two errors with no further repercussions. Of course, like we don't want to make mistakes, but this is to prove that like the process, even though it seems a little bit weird, and I agree that is not very friendly to people that are not in the context, but it seems to be working. And while we want to improve it and make it easier for everybody, we also have the mandate to keep the protocol secure. So we are only comfortable of making changes. We fully understand like why something was done in that way in the first place, and what are the all possible implications of making that change. So yeah, that leads us to be a little bit slow when it comes to making changes to the spell process because spells are quite, how can I put this? They're very sensitive because if you think about this, is a bi-weekly, unaudited, bespoke smart contract with root access to the maker protocol. So one mistake there can potentially break protocol, which is worth billions of dollars, and that's not what we want to do. So while we do agree that there are some low-hanging fruits that should be addressed, and they are being addressed, we do have a list of things that we have been working, and maybe something that we should improve is like the transparency on that. Like usually share things after we do it. We don't have the culture of like keeping posting about the progress that we make. Something that we could definitely change and loop the community in while the effort is being done. Part of the reason is that because most of the discussions are pretty technical, so if people don't have like the right background, they will probably not be able to follow the discussion. But for sure, like with teams as competent as DeFi Wonderland, looking at MakerDAO, we could for sure leverage their knowledge, and they could for sure contribute to what we've been doing. But the in summary, what I'm trying to say is that the process, it does require improvement, and it is currently being improved, and we welcome any suggestions from anyone. But given like we are constrained by the time, like the spell team currently has other responsibilities with the DAO. Of course, when there is a spell and the people involved in the spell crafting and review process will treat it as like maximum priority. Everything else halts. But the teams have other responsibilities, so we don't always have the time or the bandwidth to deal with every single aspect. So we end up prioritizing what we believe will bring the larger benefit to the lowest cost. That was it.
As for the Chesterton's fence, I would say like I agree, and I think when you talk about security, one has to do like tiny steps and be focusing on being either security neutral or security positive. No? One cannot like go back in security like trust assumptions. I do believe that there are like certain trust assumptions in the code or open to interpretation that are like these like follow previous patterns and they are not like documented or enforced like by linter warnings, something that if somebody is like adding a new RWA collateral and they have to increase the debt ceiling, they have to bump the oracle, but they forget to update maybe the collateral price, for example, something that is on the executive library. Like having a sign that says like, hey, you're forgetting to do this can be better. And maybe it's not needed in that particular spell, no? But maybe like having to disable that sign will bring like the reviewer some kind of a, hey, why are you disabling this instead of like just not seeing something and being like more permeable to errors, no? And I understand like the thought behind like many of these what you say like conservative security standards, but as you said, like it's working and it's working okay. I had something. What we said, like I think that this kind of like, okay, every 2 weeks we make a new spell, and then like some improvements are done, and then the next 2 weeks, like some new spells, some new improvements are done. In a way, it also generates like some scattered changes in the code base, no? And then if an external
Actually, we avoid to make changes during the spell crafting. The window that we have to make improvements is in between spells.
okay, interesting to know.
Yeah, this is something that
But
is not is the kind of tacit knowledge that is not currently documented. So we could most
yeah,
likely make this. Yeah.
I think that there was a point in the checklist that says like if some maintenance PR was done like in the last 3 weeks or something, and there's like does it change this? Does it change this other thing? Um, and I agree, no. Like it's important to track the changes and not like do changes on the testing when we are doing like something new because you can introduce errors in both things.
Yeah.
Yet there are some like maybe criteria that we could be like agree on and say like okay a spell PR cannot change like for example this file at all, no? And if there's a change in that file at all, then an alert would come and say like, hey, this is changing this file, or not even allow that to. But then you have to like structure, okay, what do we expect as a minimum? What do we expect for a particular spell testing suit? And how are the cleanup patterns happening, no? Because as developers, what we see is changes in the code base. So if a malicious line was introduced today, maybe it gets exploited 2 months from now, and nobody is going to see that line until it's being exploited, no? Because it was introduced as a change like before. So keeping that and making like better testing like scripts, like saying, okay, now we archive this spell and we send it to another folder. there is a script that actually checks if the code, if the files are exactly the same. So like improving all these like testing suits so that GitHub actually says like, okay, this is the PR that archives this spell, and GitHub already can give you the green check of this is actually what happened and no other line was modified. But then you fall in like having to trust GitHub, no? Like, and that's like another security trust assumption that they are running okay the test and they are providing you like a green check when it actually does happen, and you fall in the risk of like reducing the load of what we consider like trusted actors that are the humans uh, at the expense of trusting a little bit more to GitHub. But I do believe like there's like an analysis to make on, okay, what are all the trust assumptions, and be coherent with what we trust from the separate actors, so that we say like, so that we establish if we are doing security neutral or security positive or security negative step in saying like, oh, okay, but this can fail in this way. But maybe we already assumed that that's not going to fail. That is something like GitHub not misbehaving is something core to this whole process. So what I'm saying is like there is this analysis to make on what are we trusting, and to say if we are already trusting on this, maybe we can expand a little bit of the trust and have better toolings and not be doing any like security negative step.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in terms of the trust assumptions, this is a trust process. There's no other way around. Like it has been like this. If you think about this strictly, it was even worse before when MakerDAO engineering team and later the protocol engineering core unit were like the single entity which was able to write and review spells. And even though like they claim they would do like red teaming and shadow reviews and things like that, like all those people know each other and they can collude. Right now we do have like two independent ecosystem actors. Of course, we all know each other as well. So in theory, collusion is slightly harder, but it can also be done. Uh, so yeah, there is a trust that the developers, or at least one of the developers involved in the process, is honest, because that's the reason why we have one crafter and two reviewers, because it would be easier to collude if there were less people. Like we could bring more, but we believe that like additional reviewers don't bring additional benefit on that. So maybe this should be properly documented, because as I said, like the current governance module is quite limited, and that's by design in what it does. Like we could maybe move like as the end game evolves and we want to ossify stuff in Maker Core. For instance, for SubDAOs, what we could do is leverage more modern governance frameworks. For instance, having some sort of adversarial spell crafting, in a sense that like if you publish, like in order to publish a spell, you need to stake some tokens, and anyone has some time of period to challenge it with a corrected spell, and the community can weigh in, and like there would be slashing in place. The whole crypto economic thing would still have to be figured out, but that is a possibility. However, I'm not sure we have the bandwidth to deal with that right now, because like as I said, the end game is just in the beginning, and like all teams are somehow involved in it. So we have to keep the lights on with the current spells, but things are gonna change for sure. Another thing that I would like to mention is that like we do have this extensive checklist, and part of the culture of spellcrafting in Maker is not skipping items or not dismissing them. And I can say from experience that I am someone that is usually averse to checklists. I don't like them, but when it comes to spells, I really take it seriously. And of course, mistakes can be made, but this is something that is well thought as a way to have a backstop, like the human factor as the backstop, because some of the things are really hard to automate. The problem is that, like, the idea was to keep uh, the protocol very open to change, but that means that one can do anything with a spell, and that proved to be really hard to like automate to some sort of create, let's say, factories of spells for commonly used spells. There has been some efforts in the past, both from MakerDAO engineering, also from protocol engineering, and we as well are discussing this on a more limited scope. In the answer that we gave you, we linked the document there. Let me get it for you. But we're doing that on the scope of emergency spells, which are more critical. So we are planning. We've been discussing this for a while, and we are planning to have like common emergency spell responses to be pre-deployed and cataloged by governance. So in case this happens, governance can act without engineering resources being involved and answer to a specific emergency on a timely fashion. But yeah, it's an ongoing process, and things sometimes are not as fast as we wanted to, because as I said, like, we have the biweekly spell cadence, and we also have the other duties that we have with the protocol. So yeah, we all I can say is that we're trying our best to improve this process and to make it more friendly, because trust me, like, we felt the pain when we inherited the process, and lots of things were not very well documented. We sometimes would bang our heads on the wall trying to figure out how to do stuff. And that brought us some learnings. And more recently, we onboarded some new team members. And as they were catching spell duties, they will also like point out to us what were the blind spots. There's currently a pull request open by Sidestream on the checklists in order to make it uh, somewhat more explicit on things that must be checked all times, and things that are conditional. This was not clear. This was some kind of the tacit knowledge involved in the process, but after this change is approved, it's about to be approved, should be merged today. And for the next spell, we will most likely use this updated version. Then it's more clear. But I do agree that we need to do better, in a sense, to share what we've been doing while we're doing it, and not only after it's done.
Wow, guys, I really didn't want to interrupt because this has been like really interesting discussion, and to people, for example, like me that are not experts, technical experts, we need more of this. I read in the comments that probably this is uh, the calls from PECU are going to be back, so we're looking forward to it. Uh, I would love to keep discussing this. Probably we will need another protocol scope guest with both of you. We don't have more time. We have a call right now. So thank you so much for being here. And this call is being recorded, and I am going to be rewatching it because there has been a lot of insights and alphas sharing here. Thank you so much to the Dewiz team. Thank you so much to Wonderland, to Weißer, and that will be all for today. I'm going to give you 1 minute, guys, to say something else if you want to mention before we go. So I'm gonna start with Ify.
Thanks for inviting and for making us like showing the conversation. I think like just an idea that they have and is like kind of closure is that with the end game and the sub DAOs, I think like Maker in this time like has a little bit of the responsibility of showing the path forward to all these like sub DAOs that are going to start. No, maybe you can like divide the risk because if some sub DAO like fails, it's not a complete failure. But if you would like to say like, okay, this is the security that you start on, and then you can like add more if you want to. But that's all. Thanks, and I think it was a very interesting conversation. I hope to hear to be part of more in the future.
Yeah, I like to thank Weißer has to taking the time to contribute and try to understand the spell crafting process. I know it can be daunting for someone who is an outsider. Sometimes it's daunting for people that are on the inside. So yeah, really appreciate that. And yeah, we agree that we need improvements in some areas, and some of the suggestions that you made were like are already being worked on, and some of the new things that you brought, like the explicit skip for tests, I think it will bring a lot of value. Maybe the form would be a little bit different than what you have proposed, but the intention is like all of them are all very good, all valid. So thanks for taking the time. And yeah, MakerDAO, I'd say like the sub DAOs to come, even though like the core will tend to ossify and be simpler, the complexity will then lie within sub DAOs, and we always need people with like people to put their minds to solve the hard problems that are to come, because like we're in the very fringe of DeFi. Like MakerDAO is the OG DeFi protocol, and we will be once again innovating a lot with the Endgame and SubDAO. So yeah, thank you very much for your contribution. Let's keep in touch. It's gonna be all good things for everyone involved.
Ify, last words. Or maybe Effie. Maybe
Effie,
I'm
yeah.
mispronounced. Effie. Okay, sorry.
Effie, you're
Muted.
muted.
Yeah. Nothing else to add, guys. Really interesting. I mean, this is how humans progress, sharing ideas, squeezing our brains together, and getting something better out. So thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you, everyone. I'm going to share the link here on the chat so you can all rewatch this conversation. Bye bye, everyone. See you next week.